Revealed, how a decade of hidden secrets transformed my life when the Alpha King chose me. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, echoing the frantic rhythm of her life. Just a minute ago, she was wiping down tables at the diner, her fingers stained with grease and the scent of burnt coffee lingering around her. Now, she stood on the brink of something life-changing, something she barely dared to dream of. The Alpha King himself, Alex, had chosen her. The rumors flew through town like wildfire, leaving a bitter aftertaste of envy and disbelief. She remembered a time back when she was 12, the summer sun spilling golden rays over the county fairground. The thrill of the Ferris wheel, the laughter of friends, those carefree days felt like a world away now. It wasn't just about the rides, it was hope. Hope for a future where dreams didn't just hide behind responsibility, begging for a moment to breathe. But there she was, in the heart of a small town that seemed to thrive on gossip, faced with the weight of their whispers, both hostile and envious. "She doesn't belong," they would say, glancing sideways as she passed by with a tray of lukewarm coffee. How could they understand? Caring for her sick mother while juggling 2 jobs hadn't left room for ambitions, let alone dreams. And yet, Alex's unexpected invitation stirred something deep within. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The promise of collaboration was a lifeline, yet it felt like treason to those who talked behind her back. The clattering of dishes echoed in her mind as if the entire diner held its breath, watching her grapple with the decision. Her dreams felt colossal compared to her scrappy reality, distant stars she could barely touch. And then came the moment when doubts coiled around her heart like a vice. At that same diner, one fateful Saturday, a wealthy patron leaned across the counter, scoffing at Sarah's ambitions. "What makes you think you deserve this chance, huh?" His voice dripped with disdain. Tears pricked her eyes, but she swallowed them down. In that moment, resilience ignited within her. She wasn't just fighting for herself, but for every underdog that fought to be seen, to count. As the county fair approached, she unearthed not just secrets from her past but a tangled connection between her family and Alex's that turned everything upside down. Questions bubbled inside her like soda fizzing in a glass. Would she stand up against the community's bias? Would she confront old loyalty in pursuit of a brighter future? The stakes had never felt higher, and the echoes of their intertwined fates grew so loud she could hardly breathe. Standing on the very brink of a decision that could change everything, Sarah's heart raced like never before. Would she dare to step into the light or retreat into the shadows? As whispers swirled around her, the tension was palpable, and the question loomed: could she rise to embrace a future built on her own dreams, or would she be bound forever by the past? The day of the county fair arrived, draped in a sun-soaked warmth that felt almost too bright for the shadow tightening around Sarah's heart. The vibrant colors of the tent swayed in the wind, yet she felt stiff and hollow, as if her very spirit was trapped beneath a heavy quilt of fear and uncertainty. She walked through the gates with every step weighing down on her. Familiar faces from the diner buzzed around like bees, their laughter mingling with the upbeat sounds of carnival music. It all felt like a cruel farce. Here was a place that had once offered joy, now filled with reminders of how isolated she truly felt. As she wandered past the booths, her stomach twisted when she spotted Alex by the Ferris wheel, effortlessly chatting with a gathering crowd. His laughter rang like a bell, making her heart flutter and ache all at once. There he was, the Alpha King, and there she was, merely Sarah, wiping down tables and balancing too many plates. Did he even realize the chasm that existed between them? Suddenly, as if propelled by some unseen force, she approached the crowd around him. They marveled at his every word, hanging on to every proclamation as if he were some sort of messiah. She felt out of place, a shadow trying to enter a light too bright to touch. "Sarah." Alex's voice broke through her haze, pulling her from the depths of her thoughts. He smiled, and the world dimmed around them. "I'm glad you could make it." Come join us." Her heart raced as she stepped closer, feeling the weight of the gazes pinning her as she crossed the threshold into his world. "Hey, everyone," she said, attempting to project confidence, but her voice quivered. A small bird caught in a storm point. One of the patrons from the diner scoffed from the back. "What's the Alpha King doing with her? She doesn't belong here." Whispers ricocheted through the crowd, muting the vibrant music that surrounded them. A cold rush cascaded through Sarah, and for a split second, she considered retreating. But then she felt Alex's hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "We were just talking about the future of our community. Sarah has some great ideas," he remarked, his tone firm. In that instant, everything changed. The jeering subsided, and an air of curiosity infused the crowd. Maybe they were curious about her, or maybe they just wanted to know what Alex saw in her. As they spoke, Sarah felt the fire of determination ignite within her. To transform the world around her, she'd have to let them see her, truly see her. "We need to come together," she began, her voice growing steadier. "This fair can be a place of unity, where people from every walk of life can share their stories. The struggles, our triumphs, they matter." A murmur traveled through the crowd. Some people nodded in agreement, while others looked taken aback. Perhaps her words would do more than just shatter perceptions, perhaps they could spark change, but just as she gained momentum, a familiar face emerged from the shadows, the wealthy patron from the diner. His sneer was sharp, his eyes fierce with disdain. "What do you know about unity, girl? You're just a waitress." His words cut deep. The laughter of the fairground felt distant again. But she was done retreating. "I may be a waitress, but I know what it means to struggle, and I know what it means to dream," she said, her heart pounding in her chest as courage surged through her. The crowd held its breath, and for the first time, she wasn't just a part of the background. She was here, alive and in full color, ready for whatever came next. But could this newfound strength stand up against the barriers that had held her back for so long? The glimmer of hope dimmed a little, knowing the battle was far from over. As the sun began to set, painting the sky a breathtaking orange, Sarah felt a shift not just in the air, but within herself. Would she finally embrace her place in this story, or would the whispers of doubt pull her back into the shadows? The choice was hers to make, and the crowd before her, waiting. The moment hung in the air, electric with uncertainty and possibility. Sarah could feel 1,000 eyes glued to her, their expectations swirling around her like the rich aroma of popcorn and cotton candy. As she stood there, the weight of their gazes pressed against her, but within her chest, something flickered, a warmth growing stronger with each heartbeat. She chose to believe in that flicker, stepping forward into the dimming sunlight. "Unity isn't about titles or status," she declared, her voice steady. "It's about people. About their stories. We're more alike than we think, sharing laughter, love, sorrow. That's what truly matters in a community." For a moment, silence followed her words. Then a soft clap broke the tension, followed by another. Slowly, the crowd began to respond. A few more joined in, and soon, a wave of applause cascaded through the throng. Alex's smile shone like the summer sun, warming her spirit. He stepped closer, nodding in encouragement. "See? This is what I mean. Sarah's right. We need to recognize the struggles that bind us. Everyone deserves a voice." Sarah felt a swell of empowerment, each cheer from the crowd pushing against the doubts that had chained her for so long. She turned to the man who had mocked her, gathering her courage. "Divide and conquer, or unite and thrive? We are stronger together." His sneer faltered, surprise replacing the disdain etched on his face. The murmurs of support washed over the crowd, and Sarah realized she was no longer the girl who wiped tables and served coffee. As her words flowed, they carried years of her hidden dreams. Her heart raced, knowing she was breaking the silence that had kept her quiet for far too long. But just as hope danced at her fingertips, a sudden shout rang out from behind the crowd. "What's this?" It was a familiar voice, Mr. Thompson, the diner owner, storming toward them with an angry stride, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sarah, you don't understand what you're getting into," he barked, his voice cutting through the building excitement. This isn't your scene. You won T last. The crowd's applause turned to whispers of uncertainty. For a fleeting moment, fear crept back into her heart, as if it were an old friend. What if he was right? What if she really didn't belong in a place where decisions were made? But then she remembered Alex's hand on her shoulder, the warmth that had grounded her. She took a breath, standing taller. With all due respect, Mr. Thompson, I don't need permission to speak my truth, she said, her voice rising over the mumbling crowd. And I'm done hiding in the shadows. The crowd erupted again, and for the first time, Sarah felt them rally around her, their voices lifted in unison. The dim evening light faded into a tapestry of colors that danced above them, mirroring the hope ignited within her soul. But just as she thought the tide might have turned, a tense silence fell once again, as Alex stepped forward. We can't lose sight of who we are. It has to be about all of us together. The way he looked at her made her heart flutter. Was there more to this spark between them? Suddenly, the cacophony of the fair faded away, and all she could hear was the beating of her heart and the silence of the world around them. Behind that silence lay a myriad of questions, deeper than the fair's chaos. What would happen if she continued to speak out? As Alex leaned closer, those thoughts hung heavy in the air. Would this moment define her journey? Would she rise to meet the challenge, or would the shadows of doubt claim her once more? With the sun slipping further below the horizon, a new reckoning awaited her. Sarah's heart raced at the thought what was coming next, and was she ready to embrace it all? The air felt charged, almost electric, as Sarah held that eye contact with Alex. His expression was a mix of admiration and encouragement, but she could sense the weight of scrutiny from the crowd. Their anticipation pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. What if he's right? Thoughts ricocheted in her mind, threatening the confidence she had just found. But she refused to let them take hold. She crushed the doubt, channeling it into determination. Together, we can build something remarkable, she said, her voice carrying a newfound conviction. We can elevate our community, listen to each other, and amplify our voices. Let us show everyone that unity isn't just a word, it's a feeling we create together. A ripple of murmurs washed over the crowd as people began to nod, and she could feel the shift in energy around her. They were transforming from passive observers to active participants in her vision. She spotted a few familiar faces, Mrs. Jensen from the bakery, Mr. Rivera who sold flowers, and a group of kids who always came for ice cream at the diner. Each face brought warmth to her heart. Let us stand together, she urged, her heart thundering in her chest. Let us open our doors wide and welcome our differences. Every story matters, and together, they form the fabric of who we are. With each passing moment, the crowd engaged more deeply. Their once hesitant faces softened, eyes shining with hope. Applause erupted again, encouraging her to keep going, yet, Mr. Thompson loomed nearby, his presence a dark cloud hovering over this blossoming light. She couldn't shake the doubt he had planted. Would he dismiss her words as naive? Would he try to undermine her? Who will join me? She asked, her voice rising like a call to arms. Let us hold a community meeting. Let us talk about our struggles, our dreams, and our desires for a brighter future. The energy shifted again, growing infectious. A few brave souls in the mass raised their hands, shouting out their agreement. Alex stepped beside her, his support like an anchor. Count me in, Sarah. We all want to feel heard and seen. A meeting is a great start. The crowd echoed their agreement, their voices surging together. Sarah could hardly contain the thrill swelling within her. Each clap against her spirit pounded with the pulse of potential. Just as she soaked in the elation, the shout of Mr. Thompson cut through the air once more. This is a mistake, Sarah. You think you can just wave a magic wand and change things? You'll only invite chaos. The confidence that had filled her began to waver again. But deep down, buried underneath the remnants of fear, a fire flickered to life. Chaos or not, we owe it to ourselves to try. It's time to confront the truth, Mr. Thompson. Isn't that what this community deserves? The crowd grew restless, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to resolve. They were with her. She could feel it, her pulse syncing with theirs, but before she could celebrate this victory, a sudden crash rippled through the fairground. The joyful laughter of children turned to screams as something toppled over not far from the booth where they stood. A Ferris wheel had malfunctioned, and chaos erupted in an instant. "Sarah!" Alex shouted as he turned towards the commotion, concern blazing in his eyes. "We need to," her breath caught in her throat. Just when she thought she was beginning to make a difference, panic burst forth to challenge her courage. "Stay together, everyone!" She yelled over the din, adrenaline surging as she joined Alex in moving toward the crowd. "Let us help where we can." As they rushed forward, Sarah's heart pounded. This chaos was not just a test of her voice, but of her very character. Would she rise to the occasion, or would fear overshadow the empowerment she had started to grasp? With each step, the weight of the world felt both daunting and exhilarating. In that pivotal moment, Sarah was left wondering, was she ready to fight not just for her voice, but for the safety and unity of her community? The crowd surged around Sarah, a living, breathing mass caught between uncertainty and urgency. Her heart raced, not just from the fear of what had just happened, but from the growing realization that they needed her now more than ever. "Stay close," she shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. She squeezed Alex's arm as they moved together, weaving through shocked faces and the chaos unfolding before them. The fallen Ferris wheel had sent rides and decorations into disarray, scattering laughter and floats into shambles. It was a nightmare scene, and yet, in the midst of the chaos, Sarah felt the electricity of unity sparking in unexpected ways. "Alex!" Sarah called, her voice cracking slightly in the shaking din. "We need to help people evacuate the area. Check for injuries." "Right." Alex nodded, his expression fierce with resolve, and split off into the crowd. With her mind racing and adrenaline boiling in her veins, Sarah instinctively began directing people. "Over here," she called, guiding onlookers away from the precarious wreckage. "Please, follow me. Everyone, let us stay calm." She quickly noticed children huddled near a fallen ice cream cart, tears streaming down their cheeks. Without thinking, she rushed to them, crouching down so she was eye to eye with the frightened kids. "Hey there," she said, her voice soft yet strong. "You're safe now. Let us get you to your families, okay?" They nodded, their wide eyes slowly beginning to widen with trust. "Alex!" she yelled again, searching the crowd for him. He pushed through, looking determined. "I found a couple of people who might be hurt. There's a lady near the music booth who needs help. Let us go," Sarah said, leading the way as they made their way toward the sounds of distress. The crowd began to settle, their chaos morphing into a collective drive to help. People started working together, keeping watch over one another, offering assistance, and lending hands. Within moments, the small group they had gathered formed a chain of humanity. Sarah felt an unshakable bond ignite within her chest. They were rising from the fear, lending support where needed, sharing hope even amidst the devastation. "Everyone," she called loudly to draw attention. "We need to stay organized. Let's form a line here to help get people through." As they lined up, Sarah's confidence swelled again. Despite the disaster, her community was coming together. In this moment of turmoil, she could see glimmers of light amid the debris, bonds of humanity strengthening in the face of fear. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she spotted Mr. Thompson, his scowl sharper than ever, watching the power of unity unfolding. But instead of being intimidated by his presence, she felt a wave of determination wash over her. This moment was much larger than any one person, even him. It was a testament to what she had dreamed of, a community rising up instead of crumbling down. "Sarah!" Alex's urgent shout broke through her silent thoughts. She turned to see him helping another child, but the little girl clung to him even tighter, shaking with fear. Ignoring the quaking in her stomach, Sarah rushed to them, kneeling down. "Hey sweetie," she whispered gently, laying a hand on the little girl's shoulder. "You're so brave. We're all here for you. Would you like a hug?" The girl nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Sarah wrapped her arms around her. In that moment, she could feel the warmth of compassion wrap around her heart. She wasn't just speaking words anymore, she was transforming into something real and tangible. With every passing moment, it was becoming crystal clear. No matter the doubt Mr. Thompson brought, the chaos they were facing could spark a change. But what she didn't expect was to hear a deafening rumble shift through the ground as the fairground lights flickered ominously. A new wave of panic washed over the crowd. "Stay calm," Sarah yelled, heart racing. Stay together. Before she could finish, a section of the Ferris wheel creaked dangerously overhead, shifting as if it were about to give way completely. "Get back!" she shouted, dragging the little girl and Alex with her, as chaos erupted once again. What lay ahead felt like an unstoppable force. Was this disaster just the beginning of something else? Or would it pull them apart instead of bringing them closer together? The loud crack of metal echoed through the air, drowning out the frantic voices of the crowd. People screamed, rushing to retreat from the looming danger of the Ferris wheel. Sarah felt the jolt of fear gripping her heart as she tugged the little girl closer, shielding her body with her own. "Alex!" she shouted again, her voice barely breaking through the tumult. She scanned the sea of faces, searching for his familiar one. Time slowed down, and every second felt elongated as confusion enveloped the scene. "Right here," came his voice, cutting through the chaos. She turned to see him, determination in his eyes as he maneuvered through the panicked crowd. He reached them, breathless but resolute. "Sarah, what's happening?" he asked, his voice edged with concern. "It's the Ferris wheel, it might fall," she managed to say, trying to keep the hysteria from taking root in her own chest. "We need to get everyone out of here." With quick hands, they began ushering people away from the collapsing structure. Every face they encountered was a mirror of shock and uncertainty. They pressed onward, relying on sheer will and the bonds they had formed amidst the chaos. "Over here," Sarah shouted, directing a small family away. "Stay with us." Move toward the main entrance. The child in her arms had quieted, clinging tightly to her neck. But the little girl's tears had dried up, an unexpected resilience flickered in her eyes. Sarah hoped that strength could spread through the crowd like wildfire as well. Another loud groan came from the Ferris wheel, sending a fresh wave of panic rippling through the crowd. "This isn't good," Alex muttered, glancing back at the scene. "We need to move faster." With urgency, they continued to move people, while keeping an eye on the enormous structure. Sarah felt a knot in her stomach as the chaos seemed to draw closer, the danger more apparent. "Everyone!" she shouted, desperation in her tone now. "We have to stay in a line. There's a safe path, just keep following us." Alex continued checking for injuries, bending down to help anyone who had fallen or was struggling. Sarah felt a pull to do even more, to connect with the frightened people, to lean into the fierce love that formed in her heart. "Just a little further," she urged, watching the motley group that had formed around her. "We can do this. Everyone's counting on us." Suddenly, the Ferris wheel released another deafening creak, followed by a series of sharp cracking noises. Sarah froze, dread washing over her as the structure teetered ominously. "Get back! Now!" she yelled, raising her arms as if to shield those behind her. A horrifying sound split the air. The Ferris wheel began collapsing. Metal screeched against metal. Sarah's heart raced as she and Alex grabbed the little girl, pulling her close, urging their group to hurry. "Move! Move!" Sarah commanded, panic igniting her words. She wouldn't let fear stop her. But amidst the chaos, her thoughts focused not just on escape, but on the bonds they had created. This disaster was horrific, yes, but it was also a test. Who would rise together? Who would be willing to endure? As they pushed toward the edge of danger, Sarah glanced back just in time to see the Ferris wheel begin to fall. The world moved in slow motion, the screams of terror fading into background noise as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Then, like a scene ripped from a movie, everything escalated. The entire structure began to crumple. Would it be the end of their newfound unity? Or would the threads of connection they woven hold strong enough to survive this moment? A heavy piece of metal broke free and fell toward them, causing a collective gasp rippling through the crowd. "Sarah!" Alex shouted, pulling her away as the world erupted around them. In that split second, she realized how much they had to fight for every moment, for every connection they had planted. And in the deepest recesses of her heart, a spark ignited. This would not be the end. They would rally together, or they would fight with everything they had. The surface of the ground trembled beneath them, throwing chaos into a higher gear. What would happen when the dust settled? Would the strength they found here uphold the battle to come? As debris rained around them and the world screamed in despair, Sarah and Alex locked eyes. They understood there was more at stake than their own safety now. They were part of something bigger, but how far would they go to protect their community? The answer loomed ahead, one that could change everything. The ground shook again beneath their feet, a reminder of the impending doom that hung over them. Dust and debris swirled in the air, coating everything in a thin layer of gray. Sarah's heart raced as she felt Alex's hand grip her wrist tightly, pulling her forward. The little girl clung to her, eyes wide with terror. "Just keep moving," Alex urged, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. They dashed through the throng of terrified faces. Sarah stole glances back, her heart pounding in rhythm with the chaos. The Ferris wheel crumbled in violent slow motion, and a couple of falling cars shot past them like projectiles, narrowly missing their group. "Faster!" she shouted, her voice cracking with urgency. It seemed as though time had twisted, stretching every moment into eternity. The crowd around them surged, a wave of fear that threatened to engulf them. Yet amidst the panic, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let the fear win. "Help me!" someone cried nearby. Sarah turned to see an older man trapped under a fallen beam. In that fleeting moment, the noise of the collapsing structure faded, and all she could hear was the piercing plea for help. "Alex! We can't leave him," Sarah said, her heart skipping. Without a second thought, she sprinted toward the man, her instincts ignited. She knelt down, locking eyes with him. "We're going to get you out," she promised, looking around for anything to help. Time felt like it slipped away as the din of panic surrounded them. Alex joined her, his hands pushing debris aside. "On 3, he whispered, "we lift." "Ready?" Sarah asked. "Go." With all their might, they heaved the beam off him. It felt impossibly heavy, but adrenaline fueled their strength. The old man gasped for breath, pain etched across his features. "Thank you," he murmured, struggling to rise. "Stay low," Sarah urged gently. "We need to keep moving." As they assisted him up, another loud crack echoed through the air, forcing everyone to look back. The Ferris wheel shuddered, tipping at an even more precarious angle. In one swift and horrific motion, it buckled fully, a monumental sound that made the earth tremble once more. Instinctively, Sarah stepped back, pulling the little girl in front of her protectively. But then she noticed something. An elderly woman nearby had fallen. Her eyes met Sarah's, filled with fear and helplessness. Fighting the urge to flee, Sarah glanced at Alex. "We can't leave her. We have to try," he shouted back, urgency threading through his voice. "Grab her hands," Sarah yelled, making a split decision. They rushed toward the woman, their hearts pounding, and pulled her to them just as the last of the blinking lights on the Ferris wheel blinked out. With a final, deafening crash, it collapsed completely, burying the empty seats beneath concrete and metal. The dust hung heavy in the air, creating a blurry haze as they carried the woman away from danger. Sarah felt raw emotion welling inside her as they gained distance, adrenaline mingling with relief. They were all still alive, but how many had they lost? "We can't stop," Alex said between breaths, scanning for any more cries for help. Sarah felt the weight of hope slipping through her fingers, a reality that was quickly darkening. How many more lives were at stake? But there was no time to lose. "Keep moving," she insisted, driving the little girl and now the old woman toward the park's entrance. As they neared the exit, Sarah locked eyes with Alex. They shared an unspoken promise. They would keep going, no matter what. But then another sound broke through. A desperate scream cut through the air, shattering the fragile hope that had just begun to bloom. Together, they turned toward the source of the noise, knowing they couldn't leave anyone behind. The fire of determination ignited once more within them, but would it be enough when faced with the unknown? They raced toward the scream, hearts pounding, eyes wide with urgency. Sarah felt the weight of the woman and child in her arms, but she pushed aside the fatigue that was creeping in. They couldn't stop. Not now. The crowd swirled around them like a storm, panic rampant as people stumbled and fell. The distant sounds of sirens wailed like mournful cries, blending with the growing cacophony of destruction. Over there. Alex pointed toward a small group huddled beneath a collapsed tent. The fabric flapped wildly, as if trying to free itself from the burden of fallen metal and wood. Hold tight. Sarah shouted to the others as she sprinted forward. They drew closer and saw a young boy, no more than 8, trapped beneath a tangle of canvas and debris. His terrified face was to the ground, and he was screaming for his mother. Stay with us. Alex called as he peeled back some of the wreckage. The boy's cries tore through Sarah's heart like a dagger. She dropped to her knees, clearing away the lighter pieces of debris with shaking hands. It's okay. We're here. She soothed, trying to keep her voice steady. But the boy screamed louder, the desperation in his voice pulling Sarah deeper into the abyss of horror that surrounded them. She felt her own fear bubble, threatening to overwhelm her, yet she forced herself to focus. Just a little more. Alex grunted. The tension in his voice matched her own rapid heartbeat. Together, they pushed. Finally, they freed the boy, but he didn't move. Come on. You're okay. Look at me. Sarah pleaded, desperately stretching her hand toward him. In a blink, his small hand grasped hers. Relief flooded her as she pulled him close, cradling him against her chest, feeling his tiny figure shake with each sob. It's okay. You're safe now, she whispered, even as nightmares flickered at the corners of her thoughts. Alex scanned the area, eyes darting to the chaos around them. We need to get him out of here, he said, still keeping an eye on the collapsing structures. There are still people trapped. We can't stop. The truth of his words hung in the air, a weight that was both motivating and suffocating. Sarah knew they couldn't abandon anyone, but part of her wanted to hold the boy and never let go. Mom! He cried, glancing back at the wreckage with tear-filled eyes. Where's your mom? Sarah asked gently. In there. He pointed toward the shadowy ruins of the tent. No! She exclaimed, a surge of panic rising in her throat. Alex, we can't leave her. Sarah, we can't all go back in there. He protested. We need to get him out first. But Sarah shook her head vehemently. I can't just leave them. I want tea. Her determination flashed bright, igniting a fire within her that pushed back the despair surrounding them. There was a choice to be made. They could flee to safety or risk it all to save another. I'll go, she said, her voice rising above the din. You take him out. I'll find her. Are you crazy? It's too dangerous. Sarah locked her gaze on Alex, pleading. I can't leave someone in there. I have to try. He hesitated, torn between her fierce resolve and the danger that loomed behind them. As he looked into her eyes, Sarah hoped he would understand. Fine. Just be careful. With a nod, Sarah turned, steeling herself for what she was about to do. She stepped closer to the wreckage, heart racing but determination clear in her heart. Each step into the shadows felt like stepping into a different world. The dust was thicker, settling around her like a suffocating blanket. As she called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence responded. Then, from within the chaos, she heard something. A soft whimper. "Mom?" She whispered, praying for an answer. The darkness loomed, filled with the unseen and the unknown. But she couldn't turn back. Not now. Suddenly, something shifted above her head, a loud crack echoing in the stillness. Panic surged as she saw a piece of the structure breaking loose, tumbling dangerously close. Would she be able to save them all? The weight of the decision settled heavy in the air. In that moment, as the world around her threatened to collapse, she realized nothing would ever be the same again. What awaited her in the shadows? As Sarah pushed deeper into the wreckage, every nerve in her body screamed for her to turn back. Dust clung to her throat, stinging her eyes, but she blinked through it, her heart pounding with each uncertain step. "Hello?" She called out again, hoping for a response, praying for something other than silence. The whimper came again, softer this time, echoing the boy's fear. Each sound felt like an anchor, pulling her closer to the darkened heart of the ruins. Fear fought for dominance within her, but the determination to find the boy's mother propelled her forward. "Please, I'm here," she shouted, her voice shaking. "Can anyone hear me?" As the desolation surrounded her, shadows shifted like phantoms, haunting and waiting. It was as if the collapsing tent had become a tomb for secrets, and she was trespassing in its history. Then, she spotted a glint of something, a small metallic object peeking through the rubble. Instinctively, she reached for it, her fingers grazing across the cool metal. It was a locket, probably belonging to the mother. Sarah's heart sank. It felt like a symbol of lost hope, and an urgency surged within her. "Mom!" A voice, barely a whisper this time, echoed from deeper inside the wreck. "Hold on," Sarah called back, rushing toward the sound. Every step felt like a choice between life and death, between hope and despair. The locket slipped from her fingers as she stumbled forward, letting out a sharp gasp as she narrowly avoided a large piece of fallen wood that crashed to the ground beside her. Instinct urged her to retreat, but she suppressed the panic clawing at her thoughts. The mother had a heart that beat for her child, just as Sarah's did. She couldn't give up. As she slid around a twisted beam of metal, the cries transformed into clear words. "Help me! Where are you?" Sarah shouted back, her pulse quickening. "Under here." The voice was muffled but certain. "Stay still. I'm coming." Kneeling, Sarah began to clear away the debris with desperate hands, throwing caution to the wind in a frenzy of movement. The air crackled with tension as pieces shifted ominously around her. She could almost hear the ticking clock in her mind. Time was slipping away. At last, she reached down and felt something warm and alive under the pile. It was a hand, small and trembling. "I'm here. You're going to be okay," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking as she grasped the hand firmly, reassuringly. Then she saw her an arm, then a shoulder suddenly exposing a woman, wild-eyed but alive. "Thank you. Thank you," the woman gasped, her voice raw with fear and relief. "I need you to crawl toward me," Sarah urged, fear boiling inside her. Each moment could collapse the world around them, but there was no turning back now. Working together, they inched the woman out of her burial of fear and debris. Sarah's hands trembled as she felt the human connection, a fierce bond igniting in the dark. "Where's my son?" the woman asked, panic in her breath. "He's out. He's safe," Sarah assured her, though her heart sank with the weight of uncertainty. Before she could respond, a loud noise erupted above them, sending fresh waves of dust and debris tumbling their way. It was a warning, or perhaps a grave reminder of how fragile their situation was. "Come on," Sarah yelled, spurting into action. They had to get out. They couldn't stay. But with the building weight of the debris shifting, the shadows around them loomed, changed shapes, and grew darker. Then, something caught her eye, a glimpse of movement from the corner of the remnants. What if, in that moment, they weren't alone in the dark? "Run!" A voice broke through the chaos, a command full of urgency. Sarah grabbed the woman's hand, leading her into the chaos, unsure of what awaited them outside. It all felt like a race against time. There was no telling what might happen next. Would they reach safety? Or were they about to face an even greater horror? As they sprinted towards the exit, a thought loomed in Sarah's mind. Everything she had ever known could change now, in the blink of an eye. What lay beyond the wreckage? That had become their prison? The world outside erupted in chaos, and time stretched unnaturally as Sarah pulled the woman behind her, feeling the urgency of their escape. She could still hear the terrified screams of the crowd mingling with the metallic groans of the Ferris wheel, but there was no turning back. She needed to get them both out of here. Almost there. She shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins, and when she saw the light filtering in from the entrance, hope ignited deeper inside her. But just as they neared their escape, a loud crash echoed through the shadows. The ground shook beneath her feet, and dust exploded around them like confetti in a storm. For a fleeting moment, everything seemed to slow down. Sarah tightened her grip, pulling the woman through the cloud of debris, their bodies trailing through the haze. A sense of purpose pressed against her chest, reminding her that she fought not just for her survival, but for the connections that had formed amidst the wreckage of a fairground. Outside, the chaos surged on. People flooded the area, first responders converging like a swarm, checking for injuries, moving the frightened toward safety. And amid the turmoil, she spotted Alex rushing toward them, eyes wide with concern. Relief flooded through her. He was there, her anchor in a storm. Sarah. His voice rang out, and he was there in an instant, rushing forward to help the woman. You found her. She was trapped under the debris. Sarah explained, breathless. We need to get them somewhere safe. Without another second lost, they led the rescued woman and her son away from the impending chaos. In the distance, the creeping shadows of fear began to lift as they passed the medical tents, the warmth of caring eyes and strong hands guiding them. The cries for help still echoed, but something had shifted within Sarah. The weight now felt lighter. She'd done something that mattered. Support galvanized the once fractured crowd as people rushed in to assist others. Let us set up a comfort area over here. Someone called, a fire of teamwork igniting among the people as they organized. As the dust settled, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill her lungs. It was as if the collective energy had rewritten their fates, an electric revelation of resilience dipped in unity. That was amazing, you know? Alex breathed, stepping closer, pride sparkling in his eyes. You inspired everyone. Sarah turned to him, her heart swelling. Could this moment define the future for them both? We all did this, she insisted, her voice filled with the familiar strength she'd uncovered together with the community. Every voice matters. We can't let this chaos define us, we rise together, remember? Just then, the young boy, still trembling, broke their moment of reflection. Thank you, Miss Sarah, he whispered, looking up at her with wide eyes filled with gratitude. And in that instant, everything crystallized, the hope, the dreams, the voices finally recognized. No, she knelt, placing a hand on his shoulder. Thank you for being brave. Tears brimmed in her eyes as a sense of belonging washed over her. She realized she wasn't just part of the background anymore. She was woven into the very fabric of the community. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the fairground, almost as if blessing their newfound unity. Laughter began to trickle back in as people shared stories of resilience, showing that brokenness could birth strength when bonded by love and determination. As Sarah stood there, the crowd stirred with life, slowly returning to where they belonged. The fair may have fallen apart, but together, they would find a way to rebuild. Let us hold a meeting, she said, looking over at Alex, who nodded fervently. We can talk about what we want for our community. Absolutely, he smiled, a warmth blooming in his heart that Sarah felt too. They exchanged a knowing glance, realizing that they were no longer just individuals struggling to rise. They were a community united, a thread they could carry forward. Together, they faced a horizon ripe with possibility. With arms raised high, they made their way toward the tent housing emergency assistance. While challenges loomed ahead, Sarah felt a conviction in her heart that they could face anything together. They had survived. This was the moment that defined her journey, the catalyst for a future she could now embrace. The dreams once hidden in shadows now danced vibrantly in the open air. Sarah was ready, and just like that, Sarah was no longer just a waitress in the diner. She was a beacon of hope in a community weaving together their stories and shining brightly for all to see. As her heart swelled with joy and purpose, she knew there was so much work ahead. But they would embrace it all, together. Now, if you're feeling inspired by Sarah's journey, this is the moment to make your support known. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will uplift your spirit. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this journey. Comment below on your feelings and reactions to this heartfelt conclusion. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the love and strength that comes from unity.